Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we have from Dolan, The Wound Is Not the Body. It's been 9 years since we got a solo album from Dolan with Kill the Wolf. 5 years since we got any kind of full length. I mean, that was his stellar team up with Sage Francis as Epic Beardmen for This Was Supposed to Be Fun, one of the most criminally underrated rap albums of 2019. Now that's not altogether surprising. The pandemic made touring a living hell for any independent act, and Dolan was keeping pretty busy actually doing a lot of streaming, but a factor just as large was how he had to get emergency spinal surgery, which led to a long, arduous recovery in a hospital and a deeply horrific time for healthcare. That sort of harrowing context that for a rapper known for the politically charged, cutting, and personal, had this as one of my most anticipated projects of 2024. And having sat with it a little longer than some, oh yeah, this is an absolute triumph. And outside of the failure, which is an artistic piece in a world unto itself, I think this might be Dolan's best solo album, and much to my surprise, his most accessible album to date, with a tidy 9 songs running just under a half hour. And what I love immediately is that it's got the feel of a back-to-basics project in the boom-bap percussion and the swag-rig grooves and the soul chops, until you realize that's not really been a lane for Dolan compared to the more twisted, experimental production of his earlier catalog, to say nothing of the spoken word, with a feel of a renewal in a new headspace where you can comfortably find new pockets that might be a little bit more familiar in a different way. I mean, I don't love every sample choice, like the chipmunk vocal on The Rock Cried Out, or the uncanny, weedy synths behind Selfie Sub, and some of the vocal mastering can feel a little flat and grainy, but on some level, that also kind of fits the production palette, and it does kind of work thematically, as rough edges will naturally occur in the difficult work of healing, reassembling one's life and self. And besides, when you get the more layered scratching and jingling drums on Turn a Mill, that seedy horn and warbling behind the striding percussion on The Traveler, the rattling but spacious Fantasy Baseball, the jaunty pianos underscoring How to Rob the Italians, and that later translates into the creeping dread in the reverse melody and keys against the Griselda-esque sandy drums on Ice Cream Wars, and especially those bouncy keys and the bass line behind The Last Temptation of Wile E. Coyote. I mean, it's hard not to be reminded of the best moments for Epic Beardmen and how Dolan can have a bit of a lighter touch, a more tangible sense of humor. And you know, when you're recovering from such a horrific ailment that he saw in the hospital, you need some of that humor. And I really like how Dolan bookends the project directly addressing that journey, with Turn a Mill with explicit references to hospital recovery during the worst of the pandemic, and Modified Warrior showing his return with newfound strength, but then he uses all the songs in between to showcase all the other things he is now reconsidering and is looking to grow beyond. He doesn't solely want to be characterized by his injury, and he's looking for that opportunity to grow. So I like how The Traveler shows the level of miscommunication and language barriers that can come with navigating through the rap industry, but also how ardently full of shit all the hierarchies said industry reinforces are on one of my favorite songs, Fantasy Baseball, highlighting how the conversation around modern rap music is monopolized by the mainstream top 5 list, beholden to the best-selling favorites and stand-ums, and how so much of that conversation is just built up for the commentator's own clout. Quitting that game is better for everyone's health, especially for Dolan's case where he never really fit into the game in the first place. But it actually gets more complicated from there on out. The Rock Cried Out is a more abstract song, but seems to focus on how an artist attracts parasocial and even social fandoms, reinforcing how much they invest in that artist, and what does that mean when the artist is grappling with very human struggles to which they might not be that far removed. And that's later echoed on the slimy exploration of influencer culture on Selfie Sub, with the desperate male orbiters chasing a world where sex sells, and yet sometimes it can be the fastest dollar for women to get free of that late capitalist trap. And hell, he's in that system too. And if we're looking at the truest evil that underscores this album, it is that systemic rot. How to Rob the Italians is funny on its face, lightly toying with some New York gangsta stereotypes, but by the end of the song it highlights the colonial and imperial legacy of Italian-based empires going back to the Roman times and the Vatican, and then those grasping for the cheap imitation of that luxury, but they're not the only ones. B. Dolan inserts himself into the framing of the grisly ice cream wars, which is a layered critique of how gang violence gets commodified by the rap industry, only to leave ruined families and violence in their wake when they've wrung out all the money and left a lot of ruined kids behind. And then we get The Last Temptation of Wile E. Coyote, which takes the Looney Tunes character, draws a parallel to aging, backwards-looking rappers who fancy themselves as macho and borderline predators, and then how plainly pathetic it all turns out to be when they keep on failing time and time again. B. Dolan knows these guys. They have some talent, their ingenuity there, but they're chasing some gimmicky bullshit that ultimately won't satisfy them even if they get it, and they haven't even gotten close. So I appreciate the gentle undercurrent of optimism in the critique that maybe there can be a better way. But that better way is not going to come easy. And that takes us to the closing track, Modified Warrior, and taking a broader systemic view. The folks at large who won't rock the boat for systemic change, even as time might be running out within that bad system. A system that might actually reinforce his position, but one that he can't buy into anymore because of how grinding and exploitative it is. The passionlessly chase that easy buck, made all the more stark when he has had to rebuild his life largely on his own, and is coming to value a community that's looking for a major better change. One of the most stark lines on the album is in the outro. I realized what a violent word normal is. What has been systemically enabled or allowed to become normal in the existence or absence, and the violence often required to maintain it. And it's clear that after everything B. Dolan has been through, normal is no longer in the cards. And for the better. So in short, yeah, this album rules. It's brisk, it's impeccably paced, the wordplay hits the sweet spot of accessible but occasionally funny while having tangible layers and real social commentary, and the production is the most loose and groovy that B. Dolan has ever had. I've been listening to this project for a while now, the replay value is high, and it's everything I could have hoped for out of his recovery. It's one of the best of this year, it's gonna be slept on by way too many. Please folks, if you like rap, check this out. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, and subscribe. Longtime B. Dolan fans, I'm curious where y'all gonna fall on this. I know it's been kind of a lukewarm reception in some quarters. I think it's excellent, and honestly, I don't think it's getting enough attention. There's a lot of special here that deserves a ton of attention. Beyond that though, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. So if you want to get albums like this on my schedule, or argue with me on my Discord, or hell, just support the channel, link to my Patreon is right over there. Don't feel obligated, but the option's available. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.